Oh, I can't see me.
You will. You just tilt it back just a little.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Catherine Melendez, and I'm here to go over the information I gathered from interviewing a small business manager, or actually a retail manager here in Jacksonville. Thank you, audience, for showing up. I know we had some troubles getting together. Let me go ahead and show everyone my audience. Here we go. Here they are. Oh, sorry. Now maybe you can see the audience. Okay. Great. Now let's get started. Okay. I interviewed a person named Jose Lopez. He's actually a manager at a retail firm called Mattress Giant. Not that I'm going to get into selling mattresses, but he's got a lot of management experience, so I figured that he would really be able to help me. Um, before I did the interview, I did some research and I found a couple of articles. One of them was by Tim Connor. He had an article called "How Are You Handling the Five Biggest Challenges Facing Managers Today?" And in there, he wrote that probably employee morale is one of the biggest things that as managers they are facing, as trying to keep their employees on point, and focused because of the way that the economy is right now. MarketWatch actually reported in the Wall Street Journal that since the recession has began, over 95,000 jobs have been lost in America. And that's a pretty big number. So that gave me a little bit of a basis to be able to come up with some questions that I asked him. As far as his experience in the field, he's been a manager for many years in several different aspects. He currently is a manager in Mattress Giant, but prior to that, he was a manager of route sales for the Florida Times Union. And he also was a member of the military, and he had several people that were underneath him. So it gave him quite a lot of experience as far as that goes. Um, some of the highlights of the interview were, the first thing I asked him was, what should I focus on in school? He said communications is key, which is, exactly part of what this class is about. He said you may also want to look at human resources, marketing, something like that as a backup to be a successful manager. Um, I asked him specifically about communications, and I said, "Where do you think communications plays in the field?" And he said, "If you do it percentage wise, probably about 60% of my job is communications as a manager." So that really says a lot as far as how much communications means in the business world, because you've got to talk, you've got to do all kinds of things, interact with your employees and things like that. Um, I asked about management and how does that interact with your personal life, and he said management's a full-time job. You don't get a lot of time to spend with your family. I mean, your family time is what you make of it, but you're going to spend a good 12 hours a day probably working when it comes to being a manager. And sometimes when you're home, it's going to intrude, but you can find ways to have a proper balance there. We talked about things that he thinks make good employees, and he mentioned that being punctual is huge. He mentioned, being able to stay on task. That's a big thing for him as well. Um, Paying attention to detail, that kind of stuff. Um, the biggest challenge, as far as employees goes back to communication. He said being able to communicate, because not everybody listens the same way, not everybody interacts the same way. So to be a manager, communicating with different levels of people where they're at. I mean, he's had people with master's degrees under him, as well as someone that just came out of high school. So being able to interact with those people and get his message across to them has probably been the biggest challenge that he has found. Um, I asked if he's noticed that the problems in the economy in his business. He did mention that this year his sales have been down 10% from where they were last year, and he's noticing that less customers are coming in. But he feels very confident in his product. What he actually said is, he said everybody needs a mattress. I'm not going to lose a sale on a mattress if someone needs one to a computer. So he feels confident that that's going to turn around for him. Um, I also asked him about feedback as far as employees go and being a good manager. He said that he thinks feedback is very important, but as far as giving that to the employee, the best way to do that is hands-on. You go side by side with them and you say to them, "This is what I did. to get to this place. And he thinks that if you show them that you're not beyond doing what you're asking them to do, then that'll get them motivated a lot better. The last thing I really talked to him about is I asked him what advice he had as far as me getting into management. And he said, first be perseverant, just stick through it, push, you can do anything as long as you put your mind to it. And then he said, know a lot about the company. So that was pretty much all of my interview. Next thing that we're going to talk about is I researched an article that for a new find in my field, and I found an article that basically talks about the 10 things you can do to make an employee love their job. Staying organized, number one. Employees hate when things are in chaos and they can't go find things where they want to. Make it very comfy, open workspaces. Having them feel comfortable when they walk into the workplace is very important. Give everyone a say. Employees love to have a voice. They want to be heard. And if you let them know that you're willing to listen to them and their feedback is important, then they feel much more comfortable in coming to work. Make the workplace like a community, which is another one. Everybody feels very close-knit and bonded. Focus on utility. Focus on the ways that you can use things within the workplace to help you all work together and not have stumbling blocks throughout the day. Make the office optional. I wish my job would do that, where you can have a flex schedule. You come in some of the time, you get to work from home some of the time. That ideally would be where I would love to be. Make education a priority. They think it's really good for employees to be motivated by their jobs to go out and get further their education. Consider mixing uses of great space. If you've got two operations of the business in two separate places, look at bringing them together, and then you can improve, your staff and their ability to work together. And finally, the last thing is they said add some perks. Add something that motivates your employees to come in. Give them, some kind of incentive if they get a certain sales figure or if they get something like that. That makes employees really love to come into work. And that's my informative speech and my find in the field. You can see my audience applaud me, I hope. And thank you very much.
Fantastic.